I'm going to bring in the future right here. Cory, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. I think you're a rising superstar. You are going to be something in the community, and I'm very proud, honored, and humbled to have you here. And when you guys hear Cory, you're going to be blessed. I'm telling you, he's on top of his game. I have somebody at my door.
All right, I guess I'll take over the show. Hi,
I'll
Buffy.
help out. It's okay,
Awesome.
Cory. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, how's it going?
It's going good. Yeah, I told Floyd, I was like, you need backup, Floyd.
Yeah. Well, listen, it's all about cults, what we're dealing with.
Yes, it is. Absolutely.
From one cult to another, people are realizing that the truth is not going to come from some external authority or source other than themselves. And unless you're talking about God or truth or nature itself, you are a part of that. But
Right.
people are worshiping people as
Right,
though they are
yeah.
deities. And
Right.
they treat government as a religion. And when they escape that religion, they just go to another, not realizing that it may not be any better.
Right. It's
Employing the
called
same
cult
strategies.
hopping. Cult hopping. Yeah, I've read a lot, or I follow Daniela Mesnick Young, who is she was in the Children of God cult.
Yes.
And then
Wow.
she went from the Children of God cult into the military, and she's like, "Oh, this is a breeze. It's just another cult, right?"
That's crazy.
But she's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I interviewed my friend Daniel Arnold. He was 30 plus years in like all the different types of law enforcement, you name it. And he came out of that. He's like, man, I didn't realize all this time I had this ego. He had this spiritual awakening one day. He's like, wow, I didn't realize, I've been doing this all this time. And it's because you're trained and indoctrinated into believing in your own ego and
Yeah.
solidifying it to the point where you don't question your own authority, and certainly
Well,
would not
that's
let anybody
because-
else question it.
Yeah, because they get you into the hive mind where you lose total sense of self-identity.
Right.
Your ego it becomes enmeshed with everyone else's ego, which is essentially the cult leader's agenda and
Yes.
goals, right?
Absolutely. And I love the fact that you seem to kind of grasp this, because it's psychology, right? And it's philosophy, and you're not going to usually hear that in a lot of independent media, a lot of people who talk about the truth. But yet, how important is it, right, that we look at that? Because if we want to change the world, that relies on our actions, and our actions relies on what we know, our first
Yeah.
principles, our fundamentals. Do we have those figured out? Right?
Exactly.
So I define concepts like freedom and slavery and get really basic with it, because many people can't even define the basic terms. So
Right, because we've been
Yeah.
super dumbed down. On my channel, I examine the occult, and I'm now starting to come out with my own story of how I've escaped the cult of one person, which led into a cult hopping into the cult of Amun Hillman of Lady Babylon 666, which is it's becoming very dangerous. So I would look into that if you're into looking into the cults, and I'm going to be covering a lot of stuff that I'm not ready to come out with yet, but they say bring receipts. I have receipts.
Yeah, wow. I definitely want to connect with your work then. I'm unfamiliar with it. I would love for you to link that to me. Share that if you can.
I'll put it in private chat.
Yeah.
Definitely. I'll definitely put it in private chat. Now let's see if Floyd is ready. I think he's off the phone. I didn't mean to steal the show, but I'm good company. Hey, Floyd. Floyd says no. Okay.
I wonder if
Hey,
anyone
Floyd.
here in the
He's
chat,
playing peekaboo. Okay.
is anyone here in the chat? I'm curious if they know about Mark Passio, or even if you do.
I know
Buffy.
about Mark Passio. Yes.
Yeah?
I followed his work for a good bit. Yeah.
Okay.
I've been into the occult since 1999, raised Southern Baptist. So I've kind of been around a bit.
Wow. Yeah, so
All right,
a lot of people who follow my work know about Mark because I'm in his network. He's one of the first people like in independent media to really open up to my work, and that was like super cool. And I lived in Pennsylvania, and he was in like Philly or so. But when we're talking about cults, it's funny because he knows that some of his followers love his work so much to the point where they worship him kind of, like a deity. They take every word
Yeah.
he says so literally.
Mhm.
And so he has a
Mhm.
sticker at his events he purposely uses on purpose. He calls himself the anti-cult leader. He jokes around, but he's a good dude. Like, he's generally he's not living on much of an income. The dude is just living his life. And but many people treat him as though he's got all this knowledge, because he's great. He's really good at delivering the message, but that comes at a cost to those people who are totally broken. A lot of them that come to him, right,
Right.
from like the military or from the jailing systems, and they're looking for hope. And so they find people like Anna von Reitz or Mark Passo or others, and they start
Bobby
saying, "Wow,
Hillman.
they're
Yes.
saying the truth." And so,
Right.
unless they develop a personal autonomy in their own worldview, they start getting trapped into another worldview that's not theirs, right? So,
Mhm.
are they truly free, or are they just another form of slavery or mental servitude to one degree or another? I want to create the most amount of freedom and personal autonomy for everybody. And I know the word person might not be the best one to use, but you get the point. So, I'm about context here. And I'm a bit controversial in the assemblies for that reason.
I'm very controversial too. I mean, I am a cult defectant. I
Mm,
think is what it's called, cult defectant.
yeah,
Once I realize what's going on, I kind of eject myself.
yeah. Yeah, and I know a lot of people in the assemblies. I told Fearless Floyd, I mean, when I reached out to him, I said, man, I have a lot of different stories that I could share, but I wouldn't want to, just throw people's personal lives into everything. But I definitely know there's a lot of whistleblowers that you haven't even seen. Your audience has not even seen, people that I've met. Some of them are public with it. And they've gone down interesting routes, and they would tell me things like, well, I was part of the foundation, but they all got arrested. Like, I would hear things like that. All my friends got arrested when we were all starting that. It's like, whoa, that's interesting. And when you have all these different whistleblowers on your show, I mean, that right there is enough, to be like, there's something's not right. And it should not be just passed off and say that shouldn't be looked into. These are people that
Exactly.
have stories. So,
Right. If you look up the Imagination Podcast channel on YouTube, Emma is doing nothing but interviewing people that are coming out of like MK Ultra type programming, 3-letter type situations, you know what I'm saying?
mhm.
And just exposure. There's been a lot of exposure, and more exposure that is coming out, more people want to talk about it. So Floyd will probably be flooded very soon once we start talking cults about people that have left cults.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's crazy.
All right. Okay. All right, Buffy. Let me
Yeah,
get back to Cory.
I didn't mean to go down that route, but I did tell her. I said
Yeah.
it's all about cults. That's what it is.
Right. Yeah. It sadly it is. All right. Welcome to the show again. Give us a little bio about yourself, how you got into becoming a podcaster, influencer. Tell us a little bit about your background, where you're located, your age, and what your mission statement slash goals are towards the future. And I'll give you the floor. So,
Thank you. I like the fact you're like your age. I mean, that's a lot of people I talk to, and a lot of the events I do too. And I have a lot of my audience is mostly 40, 50 and up, basically at the moment, but I plan on getting involved with the younger generation. I'm 24, for those of you who don't know. And I think that piques a lot of interest for individuals who are on a truth or freedom seeking journey, because they find this out later in time that they were lied to and so forth. But I think because the information is spreading so rapidly, despite the censorship, there's actually a lot of people like myself, who are in the younger generation, who are starting to pick up on what's going on. Or at least asking questions about what's going on. And frankly, that's all I did when I was growing up. I started out around 13 or so researching ingredients in the grocery store. I would just pick up a product and start reading it and then start researching it. I'd be like, hey, mom and dad, you should buy this product instead. Over time, as I realized that we are basically lied to about the food that we eat and that there's cancer-causing ingredients and all sorts of crazy things that people are just finding out now, I realized, shoot, why are we not being taught this? And this is kind of special. So as a kid, it's like, whoa, I have this knowledge no one else has. And so I start looking into it and sharing it with others. And sooner or later, now it becomes a passion, right? But for me, it's like a necessity because it's like literally what we're eating. And then I start working out and I start thinking, I start journaling, which is huge for me. And as the time went on, I got into nutrition, took a nutrition course. Then 2016 came around, got political, became a super pro-Trump right-winger, basically. Could uphold every stance under the sun for Mr. Lord Trump. The way people treat him like nowadays is, as we've talked about with cults, a deity leader. You know, somebody's going to save us, the savior. That's how everybody treats governments throughout history. Just look at the way people worshipped Hitler, if you want, or Stalin, or any of those guys in World War II. It's quite concerning because people have the same mentality now when it comes to other people. They don't run their own lives. They don't own themselves. And I did not see this contradiction when I was in politics. I never asked myself the psychology, never asked myself the morality of it. I was stuck in a cult. We can all say that probably some point in our life we were stuck in some sort of mindset. Now, whether one degree or another we want to call it a cult, that's another thing, but frankly, it's something that gets us stuck, pigeonholed, in believing that we need to give away our own authority to someone else. You know, we need to do campaigning for them. We need to give them money. We need to do all these things. In reality, is that actually going to help us, or is it helping them or some other agenda? And that's what we have to ask ourselves, right? Is it true that voting and the political process and Trump or all these guys that we look up to, are they really going to give us freedom? Or is freedom going to come from the people themselves, right? We say we the people for the people. Well, where is that? Why is that? And let's look at those ideas deeper. You know, were our founding fathers perfect? Were the Constitution, the Holy Grail that they wrote, perfect? What about the censorship that happened then? What about the American abolitionists, right? So I look at these, and now, you know, that's one of my focuses. I wrote a book called Slavery Gone for Good, right? So I'm an author. I write books now. And ever since I got out of politics, if you ever heard of the term voluntarist, that's what I am now. If you follow the works of Mark Passo, you would know what that is, or people like Larkin Rose, and there's many others. They don't have much attention in independent media, but I project that they're going to have a lot more followage in the coming years because they're hitting it on the nail. They're getting to the root cause as to why we're not free. It's a belief system that's called statism. And this belief system has permeated generations of time. And this, I believe, from a psychological point of view, from a historical point of view, is the only root cause problem to nearly all the evil that we see in our world. There's always going to be evil. The question is the manifestation of evil, the aggregation. And so when I was, you know, coming out of politics and asking myself these questions, I couldn't wrap my head around it, right? Because I had like a blockade. There's always cognitive dissonance when you learn new information, right? It's like, how does that make sense? Like, what does that mean? My conscience? Like, if the commands of a political authority go against my conscience, do I obey the political authority because they're more important than me, or do I follow my conscience? Like, which one's more important? Do I obey the law or follow what I know to be right? Like, things like that, right, would get me stuck into a little bit of like a rut of like, what do I do, right? Because I would never ask myself these questions. And again, in politicians, school, they're never going to ask you moral, psychological questions like that. But yet they're so fundamental because if you did, World War II wouldn't have happened. The millions of people that support Hitler, they're the ones who take the action to hurt their fellow man. It's not the one person. It's the millions who follow them. Right? So we can attack the leader. We can attack the person who's running the show, we say, but they're not really. One person doesn't make this world. Tons of people do, through their beliefs, through their actions. So that's where our work relies. So now my work is with the people, you know? It's not just about myself, my own beliefs. I'm not projecting onto the world saying this is how the world should be. I actually want people to live their own lives voluntarily. That's what it means to be a voluntarist. Think what you will. Just don't impose it on someone else using violence. Very basic. I think most people can agree with it. They have superstitions, justifications in their own head that say, oh, well, we can't be free. Just like back then in the 1800s. Oh, well, without the slaves, who will pick the cotton? Oh, without government, who will build the roads? It's the same exact excuses. People don't want to be free because they are programmed into their slavery. That's a hard statement to grasp.
Absolutely. Institutionalized program, dumbed down and miseducated. Absolutely. Sadly.
Yeah, and we can prove it, right? But as much as we want to prove it, we can show people all day all the different aspects of the system through so many different ways, and that can be beneficial for different people at different times. The best strategy is, frankly, people learning through experience or you asking them questions, Socratic dialogue, right? And getting them curious, helping them learn for themselves. It's really our best way. I don't meet people who tell me, oh, my friend lectured to me for 3 hours and I became a truther. I don't hear that. I hear, oh, 2008 or COVID or 2001, certain events in their life or things that made them question, oh, I heard this on a radio show, right? I saw this on a website like we're doing now. This is changing the world. This is why they have to censor. It's why they have to take it down. But for my generation, that's huge. You want to know, like, how do we get my generation? It's content creation, but not a lot of people are willing to do that. And then also high energy, and bring it to their angle, which I plan to do more on my channel. Because I'm not going to lie, people say I have an old soul. I kind of write books for a living, and I do a lot of tedious work that a lot of people my age wouldn't do. So I'm not, like, super in tune with my generation.
How many books have you written?
About 7.
Okay. Do all of you feel insignificant and inadequate now? A 24-year-old who's written 7 books. What do you think it's going to look like when he's 48? How many he's going to have under his belt? This is why I found Cory. I heard his word, and I was like, man, he needs a boost. So I'm here to help boost him up. Give him a little bit bigger voice.
Oh, man.
And again, he's always more than welcome to come back on my show. He's more than welcome to do a static piece if he wants. Come on once a week, every 2 weeks. Anything I can help out to get the message across to a broader audience. Cory happens to have the younger generation, Gen Z, I guess.
Yeah. Thank you, dude.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that.
Hey, no problem. Hey, I'm jealous.
Well,
I don't have a book.
The thing is, right, is we're all progressing, and age to me was always a number. People judged it for good and for bad. It's like, frankly, it's like you when I was 13, I'm questioning things. Imagine you're 13 or you're 16 and you're like, oh my gosh, you're lied to. Are people going to take you as serious? You know what I mean? As it is, You're saying that they're being lied to. On top of that, you're a younger individual. So people have all these different things in their head. They can't look at something objectively for what it is. They have to judge you by, like someone said in the chat, guilt by association. That's just one method. But others, basically all along the lines of cognitive dissonance, everything is about, what they have solidified in their ego for so long. That's what Buffy and I were talking about before. It's hard to kind of escape that, which is partly why I also, I wrote books on different subjects because they do different things. So, I have a book on Taoism, which comes from Eastern philosophy. The whole idea of Taoism is returning to the uncarved block or seeing like your original self. And in other religions and other philosophies, they have all different ways of saying the same thing. It's like the beginner's mind, thinking like a child again, or just kind of being able to look at the blank slate. So you're not programmed, like trying to get beyond your programming. That's essentially the idea of a lot of Eastern philosophies, down to the essence, of meditation and the true purposes of it. Not to distract yourself and get yourself away from the problems, but to find out your original self, right? So I thought that was interesting.
tell us about all 7 of your books. You just told us about one. Give us the title and tell us when you published it.
Sure.
Tell us where the book is available so somebody can go get it or even go just read about it.
Yeah, so I have some of them with me. So, Slavery Gone for Good. This one I recommend to all the people out there who care about freedom. All right, this one is really it's a big boy. It's got pretty much every topic under the sun. If you want to define basic concepts of freedom, ownership, and get to the root cause of what is causing our slavery or tyranny, then you want to read this. I call it the most important work in history. Several reasons why. I go over history and I share to what I believe to be the biggest truth or lie, depending on how you look at it, which is that government, ever since its foundation, has always been and will always be slavery. Look up, basically, how do you create a slave? Jailing, capture, war. Name a government that hasn't been based on those things. We're kind of evolving here, the human destiny. This idea of freedom, natural rights, natural law, or even republics, constitutions, democracies, these are new ideas. For many thousands of years, we've used monarchies and slave systems, and those traumas, those experiences are still passing into today. And these forms of king and queen are just passing merely into different forms that we're unable to see. And I document that through so many different writers, so many former slaves and psychologists all throughout this book. So it's a very important thing to me, which is why I call it the most important. I mean, what could be more important than slavery or the complete ownership of another individual? This to me is like the greatest form of evil you can account for, and it's a work, because it's a work to try to unenslave somebody. It's not just a work to understand it, or a work as in the book itself. It's a work that you have to do, because without you, we're all enslaved. It takes an effort of many people becoming abolitionists who want to end slavery. It's not as simple as one slave saying, I'm free, I'm going to free everybody. The slaves have to free themselves, but they need the help of others who will arm them, who will educate them, and other slaves who will help, gather the courage and faith among them, which is why they sang songs and they had to learn how to read and write. Like, they didn't know how to do basic learning, like reading and writing. That's what kept them enslaved. So nowadays, we're kept away from knowledge because knowledge is power. Like that knowledge that I just shared with you. There's other books as well that I've written. In particular, I mentioned the one on Taoism. This is it. Tao, the Full Return to Nature. If you're unfamiliar with Taoism, you might know about this symbol here, the yin yang, right? You've probably seen that before. That comes from ancient China. Now, ancient China is very different from the China we see today, where Confucius and his ideas became more so the mainstream predominant ideology. Taoism, the guy Lao Tzu, who apparently wrote the Tao Te Ching, which is the second most translated work in the world after the Christian Bible, he left China when China was becoming corrupt and becoming very political, in a sense, because he knew it would become tyrannical. So he just straight up left. And when he reached the border, somebody stopped him and noticed that he was a philosopher, said, "Hey, I recognize you. Could you write down some things?" That turned into the Tao Te Ching. And now that turned into this book I have here. So it's known historically as one of the first freedom philosophies, like ever, the Tao Te Ching. And yet many people are unfamiliar with it. People think Taoism is a religion. If you want to think of it like that, you can. I look at it as a philosophy. I study everything, right? I don't close my mind and say that's wrong because it's this or that. I learn from everybody, and to me there's a lot of gold, there's a lot of psychology in Taoism, which I think is why it sometimes gets misunderstood. You can see why people like Jordan Peterson or Carl Jung had such a fascination with it. It's because of the polarity, the duality in the nature of Taoism, and seeing the light side and the dark side, right? We all have shadows, we all have traumas that we have to face, and so that's like the dark side, the yin of the yang. And so when you understand that, you can kind of go into that aspect of yourself that you don't want to see, which might include truths that you have to see. And that's something that Taoism helps you see. But also experience, right? Again, that's the uncarved block. That's what they call it. So before it becomes carved and man-made, we're trying to figure out how do we return to our natural source, our natural way of doing things. My channel, my name, Cory, Nature is the Answer. That's the name of my channel on every platform. So my main message is, how do we return to nature? How do we not get too politicized, tyrannicized into this world, right? And so that's a process of return. It's a process of realizing our true nature. And that can take time. It's something that we're still evolving in our understanding. And I believe voluntarism and permaculture are our two action steps to getting there. Our two main action steps. There's, of course, many fields of study like Taoism that could help you get there, but natural law is another way. Mark Passio teaches that subject. But essentially, reaching voluntarism, that idea of a voluntary world, and permaculture, which is that we can work with the world and grow food effortlessly, these two solutions can benefit the world tenfold, frankly. So I hope more people can know about that. Floyd, where are you? But I have other books, yeah. So my other books are my philosophy, Naturosophy. Naturosophy I created because of a common stigma in modern day philosophy where nature is bad, basically. The idea that nature can't be good. So like, oh, because there's a tornado or an earthquake, that means nature cannot be good. Because, you can't say what is natural is what is good. If something says it's natural in the grocery store, that doesn't mean it's good. To me, this is just a way of legitimizing or making a justification that nature should not be seen as good, and making what I call an appeal to denature. So that's a whole philosophy I created based on my own journal writings and thinkings about the world. I wouldn't recommend that for everybody because it's a philosophy, right? But my other books are more practical, provide solutions, and help people, see the history and psychology of things. So I have to write about anything I find to be of importance, and I do all my work for free. For the past 4 years, I haven't really made a dime. I could make money off of it. I just choose not to because I came into this with originally good intent of like not really doing it to have to do it, right? I want to do it out of my heart. So I don't want to feel like I have to do it when I may not have to one day. One day, maybe there's so many people sharing my message that my message becomes irrelevant. Like, you guys may think, oh my gosh, I'm 24, I'm sharing all this stuff. It doesn't matter. If everybody's sharing this knowledge, at the end of the day, you're going to have 1 billion 24-year-olds, and they're all going to be sharing what I'm sharing. I'm going to become completely irrelevant, and I'm just going to go down in history like a beach wave, and I'm cool with that because that means we succeeded.
We can only hope.
Well, no, we don't have to hope. I know it will happen, but that's why I'm getting involved with the colleges and universities. I truly believe that if you can sympathize with people and connect with them on a heart level, and don't go with an agenda, over time, as they learn from you and find out the knowledge that they need to know because it's the truth, I don't have to push it. The truth is ever present, right? So I have to simply have to open them up to what is. How do I do that? I have to just break the barriers that are keeping them down. Now, there's a lot of barriers, right? But the truth shines out like a beacon of light when you expose it to the darkness. It really does. Especially like permaculture is one example of how you can grow food, and you bring people through a food forest and you're like, whoa, what is this? And their mind opens up like crazy. Well, I've seen the same thing with natural law and statism and voluntarism. When people understand these ideas, it hits at the root to everything. Everything else in their worldview falls apart. Everything. If you guys haven't watched the movie, The Jones Plantation, watch it. It's by a guy named Larkin Rose, and the guy I've interviewed before, he's awesome. And his work definitely needs more attention in the independent media. He has animations online as well. But to me, that's the future of freedom ideas, is recognizing that belief system.
Okay. Well, you covered about three of your books, 4 of your books?
Yeah. Well, because the philosophy I developed has like 3 books of its own, right? And then there's the slavery book, and then the Tao book. I have a health book as well that I wrote originally. But that one is an individualized diet journey, I call it, because diet to me is not about, oh, I go on this for 1 week or 1 month. I look at it as a lifestyle, and finding out what works for you as an individual in your own environment. So not imposing a certain diet on everybody. It's the same concept with politics, right? We don't impose one worldview on everybody. That would be antithetical to freedom. So
Right.
that's what that's based on. But it's an older book, so it couldn't be revised in time. It's around 600 pages. Because I started that one out, when I was quite younger. So I don't recommend it because of these other books are, when I was developing a much better author sense of writing. So I'm just
Sure.
being honest with you.
Okay. Where can we pick up one of these books or all of them?
I should be on most retailers, and I have expanded distribution, and I'm self-published, so I don't have anybody doing it for me. I do all the covers, everything myself. But yeah, like you can go on Amazon. People probably know about that. But it's there, so you can find it there. Slavery Gone for Good is the name of that one that I recommend, and the Taoist book is also great for those of you who are into spirituality or want to kind of get into meditation or any of those ideas.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Man, you are just a bright young man with a bright future. Thank you.
Oh, it's just the beginning. I'm collaborating with people right now, and we're doing probably some of the biggest works I've ever done. And they're not even out yet. So it's going to be monumental. And I don't like to provide too many spoilers. I don't like to talk much about my, the things I work on until they're done,
Right.
basically. But yeah, they've never been done before, ever, as far as I'm concerned. So they're very important to me. And when I bring it to the colleges and universities, I challenge the professors. I challenge them, on their history, on their idea of social equality, on their idea of equal rights. Are they really promoting that? Or are they actually promoting just a flavor of slavery all along? Because they can't
Right.
get down to the fundamentals of what is ownership and what is freedom. And they still have an ego in wanting to impose on someone else, saying, I'm right, you're wrong. And because I'm sensitive and I'm the victim and I'm oppressed and I need to be respected. Give me more rights than you.
Right. Yeah.
Or the other way around, it's like I'm not the victim. I'm super confident in what I know and whatever. You get the point. People nowadays, they go on Twitter and they do these long rants and they're like, "You're wrong," right? I'm not one of those people. If anything, I want people to get away from social media. So
Sure.
for me, it's about this generation is going to be a little tough, right? I know I'm going to face resistance. I know I'm going to face controversy, but again, I'm going to be approaching with love, and I don't think they're unintelligent. I think they're misguided. And actually, I think that when you have 50 people on TikTok, what we're doing right now is going to be very insignificant to what they can do. They have the tools of technology that we don't know, that would blow us away. My generation, like what they can do would just would shatter both of our works, frankly, like because we can involve comedy and humor and fun and all sorts of things into the mix, and now you got a whole culture of freedom, right? And when you change the culture and the social fabric of society, now you really change the world. And when you change the 20s and 30s, these people who are going to raise families and raise kids, you're changing the whole next generation.
Right. Okay. Buffy, I checked the link, taplink.cc/Cory Health.
All my
It
links,
worked
yeah.
for me. Yeah, that worked for me. So if you want to reach Cory, you can hit this link. Let me get it over here.
Yeah,
Make
I
sure.
see the theme here. A lot of people studying the occult in here. That's cool. The word occult
Well,
just
that's
means hidden.
Buffy. That's Buffy, the Occult Examiner.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, there's a bunch of RV people in here, and then there's a bunch of people who follow me on the private side. So there's no telling, Rumble has not been my primary platform. It's
Mm-hmm.
kind of been a secondhand thing that I've
Yeah.
had to incorporate over the last week to master. So that's what I'm doing. That's why I was late.
Yeah.
Still getting the nuances of it down with StreamYard because StreamYard's new to me as well.
Mm.
Let me ask you this.
Okay.
Tell us about your parents, if you can.
Mm. Yeah, and I think that's a good question because people are going to be curious, I guess, about my upbringing. And before I get into that, I just want to say hi, Tom, Chris, and Daryl, some of the people on my end who, because I'm streaming on
Sure.
my channel. I just wanted to figure to give them a shout out.
Knock yourself out.
Yeah.
Give accolades to whoever deserves them. Yes, I don't
All
have a
right.
problem with that at all.
Yeah, thank you guys for
Cory's
joining.
streaming this on YouTube on his platform as well. So we have a dual thing going on here.
Yeah, and everybody definitely check out the Fearless Floyd. He's a good dude. I love the fact he's challenging different communities, and I've encouraged that among a lot of different communities. There's people like Disenthrall who's challenging Mark Passio's community. I welcome every criticism there is, frankly. I think that's great because it makes us all improve on our ability to speak the truth. So whether it's right or wrong, it doesn't matter. Criticism is something that you can learn from. And if you're unable to take criticism, then that tells me something quite interesting, right, about an individual and if they truly are a truth seeker or if they truly are free in their own head. But anyways, so my parents, honestly, parents, like really, really good, like parents, like that's to me is the basic foundation, right? If you have good parents, then you have a good childhood. I think I look at a lot of other families and I don't see their parents. I don't see their family. They're not together. The people I do see who are together are certain ethnic groups, right? I mean, Chinese, Jews, whatever, and they tend to stick among themselves and they tend to be very successful for that reason. But when it comes to Europeans, and that's like my ancestry, I'm German, it's like, where is that? Especially in America, it's like you have all these different cultures kind of happening. And so what's important, though, is that you just have some sort of family structure or social support. And I really had that. So I think that helped me become who I am. My parents did not know anything about truth or freedom or any of these ideas. And I grew up on a standard American diet. I ate sugar every day. They didn't question really anything. So that wasn't helpful, but at the same time, they just supported my well-being, like supported my mental state. They were always there for me. And I think just having that as a basis is really important because if they teach you, for instance, general morality, right, like what is right and wrong, and you go out into the world and you see that there's a bunch of people doing wrong, you're going to ask yourself, that doesn't seem right. So that's exactly what happened to me. They gave me general basic morals, and I took those morals and I went into politics and I realized, wait, I'm making moral contradictions and I don't see these contradictions. I watched a video by Brian Young, who's also known as High Impact Flicks. He's huge online. He used to have the top 9/11 videos online, each with 10 million views each. He's got like 50 different channels. The dude's a one-man army. I'd say he's the most powerful in independent media. He's a great guy. But he had one video that had like 5 questions. I sat down with my conscience and I was just like, whoa, right? So I use those 5 questions now in a lot of my videos. You'll see I put them in most of my videos so people can ask themselves those questions. And I put them in my books too. And basically, when I sat with myself with that and I journaled, I just over time found out about those ideas. And then just because I live with my parents and I'm close with them, naturally my ideas spread to them. And now we're all on the same page. And my mom and my dad could speak better than I do sometimes, on truth subjects. So I could just sit back and watch, So it's an amazing dynamic. But they didn't really do anything for my truth journey. But they did do everything. They were just supportive. Like, that's what more could you ask for, right? I mean, I can't really say, they had a bad job. It's like,
Right.
frankly, it's like, they provided the basic essentials. They're there for me every step of the way. They still are. So that's an amazing thing. And I want to be there for other people. So that's why I'm trying to do a lot of projects now. Like, I'm trying to get land. I'm trying to find people locally in Florida, because that's where I am, to try to create things with other people and help other people and their foundations, and maybe, do stuff with education and schools, or do stuff with libraries or whatever, and just try to get the community involved, try to create a social system around the people in this generation or what have you. As it is, I'm mostly with my events, I'm like trauma support for conspiracy theorists, coming out of like the trauma of like, oh my gosh, I've been lied to. I'm like, my events are basically there to support them. So it's great and all, but we have a lot more people that we have to heal from a practitioner point of view. We are healing the world. This is a medicine applied to the world. It's not just to the individual. And that's why I shifted, by the way, from nutrition to politics. Like, I realized we can't just free one person. We have to change the world. It's the only way we're going to become free as like the human condition. Mankind. Am I allowed to use the word human here? How strict are you with the terms? I get yelled at all the time by the assembly people.
Oh God, no, I don't play all that.
Yeah, as like an
Just
author, it's hard, right? And I'm always reading different people in history, so it's like when they tell me you can't use the word individual or human, or it's like, what word am I supposed to use? It's at the end of the day, it's like, oh my gosh. But I look at the context. I look at, again, the actions, what people are doing. To me, that matters more than anything.
absolutely. Wow. Um, so you touched on two tenets
Sure.
that you espouse as the dogma for your mission.
Hmm.
Why don't you expound upon both of those and tell everybody what it's about, what
Sure.
what your
Sure.
goals are, what you're trying to do, and what that looks like?
Yeah. So when you say two tenets, what does that mean? Like in particular, like nature is the answer as my main message, for instance, or you're
Well,
saying voluntarism and statism and
and the permaculture. Yeah.
permaculture. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I try to keep it very simple for people. So if you go to my website, theliberator.us, okay, go to that website, you'll see there's an action button and a learn button. I keep it that simple. And I wish if people out there in the truth community, they wanted to actually change things, to me, I think they can probably set up a rally within seconds. They have hundreds of thousands of followers online. They can totally change things. People like Alex Jones is being sued for like $1 billion. If you have that much money, why aren't you able to kind of change things by now? Well, regardless, we have to do it ourselves. Okay, that's story short. Like I can criticize other people all day, saying, "Oh, you're not doing the work for truth," but frankly, we have to do it ourselves. Sorry if I'm tearing up here, but yeah, I appreciate you having me on, and it's an important work that we have to do. And voluntarism is really getting to the heart of it. So I encourage you guys, if you haven't heard of people like Lysander Spooner, definitely look into them. These are, to me, the true American heroes in history. The abolitionists, I focus on them for a reason. Their history doesn't get the spotlight as much as the American founding fathers, but they weren't more than 100 years after their time, and they saw the problems with the American founding fathers, right? They saw how governments are always based on this violence, and they're not protecting property and people. They are, invading it, if anything. They've always been that force. And so when you come to understand the nature of government, you become an anarchist, a voluntarist. Anarchism, I don't use that word because of the bad connotation. And you can look at the foundations of anarchism in the 1850s, and those individuals definitely were not chaotic, throwing fire in the streets and, just trying to rebel against the system. Today's, modern day left or whatever uses anarchy as a means to just rebel and go against the capitalist and evil people. It's like, I'm not like that. And if you talk to any voluntarist, they don't come from that position. They come from the position of, okay, what is freedom? Let's break down the fundamentals, and I just want to live my own life. Don't you? Like, most people just want to live their own life. Frankly, the way we view anarchy is that it's simply reality. Nobody rules over your own life, right? Now, how you attain anarchy, or the state of no rulers, not no rules, is rules. Unless you have self-ownership, unless you know thyself, unless you have the understanding of natural law, for instance, or self-ownership, and the ideas of voluntarism, like these are all just different principles or fundamentals or rules to add to your life. Unless you understand that, you're never going to be free. Because if you don't have that idea of ownership with yourself, then you're a slave by definition. And again, the slaves were not taught how to read and write. It's knowledge that made them free. That's what Frederick Douglass said, a former slave, in his own words. So the minute he had the knowledge that he was a slave, he was now free. And it was irresistible. And he had no choice but to share it with other people. And of course, I equate government with slavery throughout my works, and that's a claim that I'm willing to uphold till the end of time. And I'm challenging professors on that. But it is a frank reality that I deeply expose in my books, and now I'm doing documentaries on it. And just going back down to nature, ask yourself, these systems that we created, republics, democracies, constitutions, is this natural? Is this God's government? Is this God's law? Maybe you are a Christian out there and you follow, the commandments, right? Like, what is that in relation to man's law? Which one's more important? Are you going to follow God, or are you going to follow man? And this is what the abolitionists saw. They said You're not beholden to man. You're beholden to God's government. That's literally what they said. So they were known as the first anarchists in history, but they're not chaotic. They're coming at it from a very moral, religious, if anything, pacifist point of view. People like Leo Tolstoy. If you're not familiar with him, he's known as one of the greatest writers in history. He was an anarchist who was a pacifist Christian, And when you learn from his writings, he was inspired by the abolitionists. And, what he wrote was that he actually had a text very similar to mine talking about how government has always been slavery and will always be. And that the games that they play and the parades and the banners and the symbols that they use all manipulate your psychology into believing that they are your God. And now with technology and AI on the rise, it's very easy for somebody to be convinced that some other individual may be the God over their own life, or that AI is God over their own life in general. AI is going to be used as a form of control, and everybody knows it, which is why, in a sense, they fear it. But let's not come from a position of fear. Let's come from a position of faith and courage with what we know. And what do we know? We know nature. That disconnect between nature and the illusory, the fake, the AI, that's where we have to be careful. Are we not knowing what's real anymore? And so, what we have to do is kind of realize our nature. And the first thing to me that is required to know thyself is to realize we're free. So when we realize we're free and that nature or God is our true authority, then everything else breaks over, right? We understand that no matter what comes to us, we always have something beyond. So this screen, this interface you're looking through right now, this is not real. We know that. Where people don't see that that's illusory. So it's the same thing with the governments and the systems we create. Many people accept that as reality. They accept that as unquestionable. They are born into that system. They're naturalized, we call them. It's funny we use that word. They basically are programmed into that reality. That becomes their nature. And they don't see a way out of it because they don't see nature or God or the truth beyond it. But the truth doesn't have a government. Nature doesn't have an ideology, which is why people are always fighting over, oh, I'm right. No one's ever going to have a claim on truth because truth by definition cannot be man-made. It's not humans. It's beyond us, right? So that's the message that I'm sharing, and that's the heart of voluntarism. Live your own life, let other people live out their own life. And then permaculture is recognizing we can grow food working with nature. Instead of monocropping and destroying the soil and growing one crop and just taking over all the farmland and having a total disregard for the environment, we're working with nature. It's the same way, actually. If you look at gardening, politics, health, it's all the same principles of a way a holistic practitioner would treat your body. They would look at the whole, they would try to get to the root cause, and they would respect you for who you are, listen to you, and not tell you what to do with your own body. They wouldn't just give you a drug and say, take this drug and you'll be good, right? Because they know that drug's going to cause more problems, and then you're going to be treating symptoms all day. That's where we are. We create more laws and more laws and more laws. We create more drugs and more drugs and more drugs, but we never get to the root cause. And so that root cause is not even having to talk about health, not even having to talk about freedom, because we're already healthy and we're already free. That's the point we need to get to, where we're one with nature. We're one with the freedom or what we desire, so we don't even have to talk about it. Us talking about it is a sign that we don't have it, right? So that is the process of mastery, of self-sovereignty, of mastery over ourselves. Sovereignty means above ruler, right? So you're no longer a subject to somebody else. And it's funny, the kings and queens call themselves sovereigns. So you're basically a monarch of yourself, one ruler over yourself, mono-archon, just as anarchon, and anarchy means no rulers. Okay, so it doesn't mean no rules. You need rules to be free, but rules for yourself. That's it. And people are always going to have rules for businesses, for organizations. That's all voluntary. The problem is when they say, oh, you have to believe me, my authority, because I say so, because I have the right to rule. I have the right to do violence when no one else has the right to do violence. That right there is the right to rule, which never existed. It just was made up by man. And it started with religion, where people said, oh, well, God gave me the right to rule over you. So they used the truth for the lie, right? If you mix truth with lies, it makes the lies more dangerous. That's what cult leaders do. That's how they work.
Woo, what a segue. Well, you tied that up in a nice little bow.
Yeah, you got it.
Job with that. Wow. Okay. Do you have any events that you're going to speak at or upcoming, or what's that looking like for you?
Every fourth Friday, I do an event here in Tarpon Springs, Florida. So feel free, anybody who's in Florida, or if you know anybody down here, definitely send them my way. We have a whole Telegram for everyone in Florida, and we're building bartering hubs all throughout the state, and all sorts of amazing things that are happening due to permaculture. It's just inspiring people, and it's opening up their minds. And then, it's kind of like it's a give and get scenario. The people in voluntarism are getting into permaculture. People in permaculture are getting into voluntarism. And we're just engaging with the solution every day. We don't have to beg in faith. We're not worshiping cult figures. We're just engaging in it. And over time, they're just irresistible. Like the amount of voluntarists today versus a couple years ago, it went up like thousands of percent exponentially. Just look at the event Anarcho in Mexico. And see how many more anarchists, quote unquote, are so becoming now that these ideas are becoming more popular, and people are realizing politics is not the solution. And that's why people are following people like Anna von Reitz in the assemblies, because people realize politics is not the solution. So they're finding other methods, not that those methods are the methods to actually help us attain freedom. Because, of course, in my view, paperwork and the material things are not really going to help us free ourselves from a spiritual, mental, moral war. Right? That right there is so much more complicated, which is why it's harder for people to grasp. And it's harder to turn that into a cult.
Right. And you mentioned Narcopulco, which is Jeff Berwick, right?
And I know he has some problems, right? But again, there's different communities and different groups. I'm just saying that's an example of how much these ideas are growing. Just any of these guys, whether you like them or don't like them, Alex Jones or any of them, they're growing in popularity because people are looking for solutions. But that can be kind of dangerous because some people are desperate, right? So when things go down, people are going to be looking up to the state to perhaps provide for them. Or they can go and create some voluntary alternative solutions and show by example, and they'll be like a beacon of light to the whole rest of the world. Because people will be like, man, I'm really desperate. I'm looking for solutions, and the world is falling apart. I need to do something. So that right there is like the moment where you can totally help people.
So you said you're from Tarpon Springs. What part of Florida is that in?
West Central Florida. It's a Greek town, very cool. It's just one of the places where I do my events, but that whole area, the West Central coast, that's like my hub. I'm trying to find land around there. It's very difficult. It's the fastest growing area, perhaps in the whole nation, Tampa. So it's getting pretty busy, but that to me is a better opportunity to reach more people. And if you look at a place like USF, that college campus is like a city. So I'm guaranteed to find somebody who cares about the truth or freedom, I believe. Just by walking about and sharing ideas and asking questions, I think I'll find somebody. I went there one time and I already made some friends. Like, it won't be hard for me because I like to just connect with people. For who they are, without an agenda. Again, and then naturally my ideas spread to them, just like my parents did, and I did with them.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to connect you with some people. Of course, I had all this stuff pop up over the weekend and this week that's really kind of got me down. I have a bunch of phone calls and texts and emails and telegrams to deal with as soon as I get off the air today. Regarding the whole Sam Anderson thing. That's a whole nother ball game. But yeah, I'll definitely hook you up with Doug over in Florida, and I've got some other people. Now, let me ask you this, because you mentioned politics a lot when you're talking about, what you're trying to do, what
Hmm.
avenue you went from health to politics, but you're not talking about politics per se as far as Democrat, Republican.
Hmm.
You're talking politics in general, more of a geopolitical aspect view of it, correct?
Yeah, the word politics comes from polis, which just means city, so it doesn't have to mean political action. When I'm against politics, I'm saying I'm against voting, I'm against different forms of government, including republics and democracies and all these different forms we create. And I'm simply standing for human freedom, for self ownership, for sovereignty. And I hope for more people to kind of grasp just that idea, rather than falling onto another cult. Because I would have to say, the government itself, that is a religion. It's the biggest one of all, and people follow it, and they will believe in it, and that's why they keep falling and rising again in history. Because people believe they need someone else to rule over their own life, and as long as they believe that, they're always going to be a slave. Is they're always going to have tyranny, and actually those limited governments, those republics, are going to become even worse than the most tyrannical governments in history, because people believe they're free and they believe they have a voice. So it makes it more dangerous, because now they're mixing again truth with lies.
Absolutely. And I'll give you the best example when you're in prison, okay, you're a prisoner in prison, and you're talking about the outside world. They call that the free world. Yeah, man, free world. Going home next week. Gonna be out there in that world. Gotta get ready for the world. That's what they talk about. So as we know out here, there ain't nothing free. You got to struggle to survive, or you're going to be homeless and penniless and jobless and carless, all of that. But yet you go into prison, and if you're indigent, everything's free: free housing, free rooms, free meals, free medical, free education, free rehab. Everything's free.
Security.
So, yeah, so it's the opposite. And there's actually, and I know this is going to sound so crazy to hear, there's actually people, okay, that they go out on the streets, they get caught up doing their little thing. They only commit state jail felonies. They don't commit third or second or first degree felonies or capital crimes. So that way they know the maximum term they're going to get is 2 years. So they completely recycle through the system. One guy on the unit, when I was there for 12 years, he came there 3 times with 3 different sentences, all of them 2 years or under for state jail felonies. And he would come in the system, rehabilitate, because he was so strung out from the streets and beat up because he couldn't make it. So he had to go commit these crimes. Then he would come into prison, build his constitution back up. He would, start eating well. And then, of course, everybody's sending you money, and, you're just living like a king at everybody else's expense. And then you got to go back out there on those streets and struggle again. And that's really a thing. And it's abhorrent that somebody would want to live life like that. I just don't get it or understand it. But it is a thing, and that is reality. So let me ask you this question, because basically what you're talking about is taking the control, and I'll just use a city for an example, just a small little rural city that you might have there in Florida. What that looks like when you take the corporation out of the city government and put it in as a sovereign city run by sovereigns who are governing themselves. So how does that interchange or merger, what does that look like in your eyes, and how are you going to effectuate that type of movement into something that's pre-existing, that of course we already know power rarely cedes power?
Yeah.
How does that look? How are we going to go about doing that in your eyes?
It's a good question. That transitional process is core, right? If we don't know how we go from point A to point B, then everything I'm saying is just theory and impractical. So
Exactly.
I want to get very practical. In fact, I would say what I'm sharing is so practical, which is why it can get misunderstood. When you're saying that anarchy, or living with you being the ruler of yourself is reality, then it's about breaking the barriers and the illusions that's keeping you away from reality. So a lot of the terminology you just used right there wouldn't necessarily even need to be used, because people would understand that freedom would just be so part of life that, again, it would not really need to be a topic of conversation. We talk about it because in light of tyranny, because of the unnatural world, we create this term called natural in opposition to it, right? And the same thing goes for anything else. All the evil makes us constantly like moral warriors, and makes more people religious, and makes them flock to their religions to say, you know, we got to escape that evil that we have. So sometimes we're kind of going from one polarity to the next, and we're just reacting. Well, I'm not going from the polarity of, oh, here we have government, so now we got to go to no government. I'm saying that it's simply our reality, and so it's beyond the polarities. There is no balance of something that should not exist in the first place, something that should not be used. And if I'm saying that government is by its nature an illusion because it's a belief system, statism, then it's merely a matter of educating people on that belief system. And the abolitionists called this moral suasion. They had a term for it. And that term they saw was going to change the world. They knew that they could not end slavery by simply writing it on a piece of paper and saying slavery is wrong. They knew that they had to convince hearts and minds that slavery was wrong, and then it would be wrong, and that they needed to educate slaves and help equip them and arm them and so forth, right? So we need to do the same thing. It's recognizing there can't be a political solution, just as William Lloyd Garrison, Adin Ballou, and all these guys understood, the abolitionists, and that the true change relies in the masses and our minds. So education. How many people are willing to be educators, philosophers, psychologists, help that inspire the culture, the new generation, the social fabric, right? That's, again, my involvement in the coming years, and I encourage anybody else to do the same with me, is like, how can we inspire people? Look at the depression rates, look at the anxiety rates, look at the mental health epidemic. If you want to change the world, let's change the individuals. Let's find out why they don't feel right, why their whole life feels upside down. And if somebody's unhealthy, if they don't own themselves, I mean, they're going to be more easily susceptible to slavery. Just look up, again, what makes somebody a slave? What sign of somebody being a slave? Few possessions, lack of health, unable to read and write, unable to know, what they own, whatever. It's the same concept that we're dealing with now in the general public, where people don't own their own money because it's taken by them through taxation, which is violence, because if you don't pay, it's duress. You're going to be threatened with violence. And because that money is being taken from you continually and guaranteed, it's much worse than somebody just taking your money like a robber, because people are morally legitimizing it. They believe the government has the right to take your money. That's what authority does. That's what statism is. It's that exception in morality. It's that belief that it's okay because government did it. It's okay because authority did it. And because they said that we should do it, and that I should suppress my conscience and not think for myself. So when you tell people that they should always never suppress their conscience, that they should always think for themselves, and and always do what is right in their own worldview. Most people know what's generally right as opposed to wrong. Then why are we giving these few people, who we often call psychopaths, power over the rest of the masses who generally know what's right? It doesn't make much sense. Why are we giving them so much power? We're literally furnishing the seat for psychopaths to gain power, because they're the only ones who want power. You ask the average person, it's like, yeah, I don't want to be a governor. I don't want to be in charge. Because people are too humble. Generally, people are too trusting too, and that's why we're in this mess. The most evil is committed by good, ordinary people who simply believe in the authority of somebody else over their own life. It's good people who create the most evil in this world, because they believe in those evil people. They give them an excuse to do evil. And different writers in history have had different ways of describing this. Hannah Arendt said it was the banality of evil. That's what she called it. But again, it's statism. Carl Jung called it state slavery. He called it state doctrine. And there's many other ways to look at it. Antinomianism is another philosophy in the 1850s. But Anyways, you get the point. So it's a movement inspiring people with new ideas. And permaculture is very inspiring because let's say you have one town of people who say, we're not going to grow lawns. Lawns, they pollute the environment more than anything. We have more acreage in lawns than any other crop in the entire world, combined. And it provides no yield. We put so much work and money into it. So why are we growing these artificial lawns? Well, instead, if you have one town that grows their own food, now they're all self-sufficient. They're connected with their community. They're restoring the environment. They're healthy. So you have that combined with this mental, moral, spiritual awakening. And what do you have? You have the perfect storm to end this mess that we are in. To me, that's why these are the main two solutions. And how do we bring that? Again, let's be educators that show by example. So I have a food forest in my backyard in Florida. The permaculture movement is becoming huge. They're doing permaculture convergences. Jim Gale, we're starting to do events in Galt's Landing on his 50 acres in St. Cloud. It's growing, but it's just starting out. The network is being built right now as we speak. So that to me is a huge potential for freedom, physically and mentally, getting both, right? And without any reliance on those external systems, and doing it ourselves voluntarily without violence. When we show by example and we show people a better model, then the old model becomes obsolete. That's what Buckminster Fuller said, known inventor in the world. That's like his famous quote. Everybody uses that quote. If you want to build a new model, make the old one obsolete. So that's what we're doing. And then it will become irresistible because of that. You can't convince somebody, again, that they're a slave or convince somebody that they need to be free. It has to be done through questions, strategy, or essentially action, showing by example. That is the best way we can do it. So let's do events. Let's organize. I have a video for your audience out there, over 30 strategies and websites and groups to network with. So you can find people in your area. I came down to Florida not even a year ago. I'm already doing events out the door. That's just the beginning, right? So there's so much more potential. Wow. And if we had everybody doing this everywhere, it'd be over. Independent media already has millions of people who follow them. That all it takes is not even 1 to 3% of the population to create a big change in history in just one nation. And Mahatma Gandhi flooded the jails with his movement because he was willing to go to jail. He was willing to take a sacrifice, for his movement, for his ideas. And because of that, he won without using any violence, using non-violent resistance strategies, which are known by many professors as like the best strategy in history to create change. Right. So let's learn from Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr. Let's learn from those strategies, and then let's integrate the modern solutions and alternative ideas and let's show by example. And maybe if you want, I create a movement called Nita.1. A movement can help amplify the message. So that is something I created for that reason. If we all had one unified message, we'd be much more influential in independent media. So that's one strategy as well. I've experimented and I've looked at different strategies, but Jim Gale right now, what he's doing is getting involved with jails. So he got in touch with the biggest jail in the country, which has like over 650,000 inmates. And he wants to bring education to them and, food forest. And that's huge. And then if we get this
jail with 650,000 inmates? Yeah,
something like that. It's crazy. But I don't know what's all the statistics with that, but I think that's what he told me. Okay. But I do know that his strategy is he goes from jails to schools to churches, right? And if you can reach these three major hubs in society, you change the world.
Institutions?
Yeah, right. So because the churches are kind of supporting the state right now, and so are the schools, right? And these are some of like the main institutions that do it, because when you're in school, you're taught to be obedient to authority. When you're in churches, you never question the authority of governments, but you say that you worship God. So it's like the government just gets a free pass, and it's, if anything, gets legitimized because we say, oh, we need to bring God into the politics, and we need to bring what our parents and what the schools taught us into politics, and everything's about politics. That if we want to change the world, politics. We don't think, oh, we have to actually educate people and inspire them and enlighten them and increase the consciousness and create a whole new enlightenment. There's a whole reason why the 1700s was called the Enlightenment era. You know, it's all about knowledge and sharing ideas and the printing press and books. When the abolitionists started, they had their own printing press, which made their message infinitely more powerful. So we have to use technology as a tool for freedom, because that's what technology will do for us more now than ever before, which is why voluntarism and these ideas I'm sharing have such huge potential now, unlike any other time in history. Because people like Plato and Aristotle didn't have printing presses to just like distribute their material en masse. If their knowledge got out to more people, you know, it could have done even more. But most of the world is still, you know, even unfamiliar with these ideas of natural law and freedom. Like, America is in the perfect position to free itself and be a truly free country because we have the foundational principles already there. You know, of, oh, we're all equal. We have this idea of freedom and rights. But there's still other countries that are still stuck in a monarchy. And we would look at them and we'd be like, that's crazy. That's insane. They still believe in kings and queens? Because that's how crazy it is.
Have you watched Tucker Carlson's interview with Mike Benz?
No, I haven't.
Go watch that. When you hear the enormity of what our government is doing in these other countries, especially through Telegram and these other social media platforms, how much expenditure that they are doing to tailor the narrative in those countries for the hegemony of the United States government, not for the benefit of those people or that country. It's all for the benefit of the U.S. corporation. It's a very eye-opening, revealing interview that Mike Benz shares. And when you hear that, and then you compound that with some of my own investigations of definitely illegal immigration, where, you know, we're spending billions of taxpayer dollars to support these NGOs to funnel these illegal immigrants into the United States,
Yep.
fully clothed, you know, healthy with all free medical and dental and everything else they need, cell phones, debit cards, places to live, free flights, you know, no
Yeah.
TSA. This is an insane world. It's an insane country. It's not sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
We're spending about 90 trillion, or I'm sorry, 100 trillion, or I'm sorry, we're spending 1 trillion about every 90 days in the United States. So every 3 months, we're going through another $1 trillion. And this is static. You can go look it up on usaspending.gov. This is kind of why I go back, because what you're trying to do is go back to the organic, and I use that as a general broad term, back to rural America, where we had the family farm. We weren't driven into the slavery mode of the corporate city life because we had to go get an industry.
Yeah.
If you look at the birth rates in the United States, and I was looking at this yesterday because I always get updates. Oh, you've got new relatives on 23andMe. Because of my great grandfather, or my great great grandfather, great grandfather, and grandfather all having large families, what originated with Floyd Sr., I think he was one of 12 or 13, and they had big families like that to run the farm. My family owned a dairy down in the valley near Laredo called Rita's Dairy. Borden Dairy, Borden Milk, bought out our family farm. That's what it looked like. Okay. It used to be rural, family owned, operated with, you know, back to nature. And then the corporation came in, gobbled it up, and turned all those employees that were family members working on the farm into capitalist industrials. So what did they do? They capitalized, and you can break that word down.
Well, I'm I'm not a I'm not against capitalism as much as, let's say, materialism or consumerism, right? I think these have to be differentiated. Capital just means money. People working for what they create and creating value is an amazing thing. That's how we do anything. That's how we have computers. That's how we have all the stuff that we have. I know that when I go to the universities and colleges, there might be a common sentiment that just because you're a billionaire and just because you're a successful businessman, you might be evil because capitalism. I'm not following that line of thinking. And I want to make it clear that as well, you know, when it comes to borders, again, I was very pro-Trump in 2016, so I had a very pro-borders position. People may not understand my position now because I don't disagree with the idea of, you know, with what you said. Like, I don't disagree with anything about what you said, like with the borders and how we're like giving people free stuff. Because the question is, how did they get that stuff? It's by our stolen dollars. It's by us being coerced. So I'm against the violence part of it. And that right there, if you look at that, then yeah, I'm pro open border, but not really. You see what I mean? It's like the same thing with abortions. It's like I'm against abortion, but I'm not about the state telling people what to do with their own life. So I'm not pro life or pro choice. I'm simply pro freedom. And if people can't come to that realization, then they're going to get stuck in these dichotomies of open border, closed border, and then they're going to be fighting people all day, which they are. And I don't want to treat people as if they're lesser or greater, because that's how we kind of got into this mess. And so I don't look at people like illegal immigrants and so forth, but I understand the sympathy because I agree. You know, we should not be giving people something that they didn't work for themselves or create with their own time and energy, unless it's voluntarily given to them because we care about them and people want to share it with them for whatever reason. You know, there's many different charities and organizations that will do that. Why do we need the government to steal everybody's money, take everything through violence to give to other people? I mean, this is crazy. So it's the violence part of it that I look at. You know, it's the morality part of it that I focus in on. And so when it comes to money, it's the same thing. You know, is somebody exploiting somebody else? You know, this word exploitation, like, what does that mean? You know, and people make all these different ideas like communism and Marxism and all these ideas, socialism, because the capitalist is evil. So let's make a government out of that. And now let's take the money from the rich. It's like, no, because again, there's violence involved with that. Anytime you start adding violence to the equation, you're saying that you should rule over other people's lives and that their life doesn't belong with them. You're already losing the whole game, you know? So this is what Bakunin, if you don't know who Mikhail Bakunin is, he was a friend of Karl Marx back in the 1850s. And he warned Marx, he's like, I like your ideas of like challenging billionaires and all these people with money, but you want to create state power to reduce state power? How is that going to work? You know, so like Bakunin challenged Marx on his ideas and he predicted the rise of communism. And Bakunin was an anarchist in the sense that I'm kind of speaking about, in the sense of saying, like, let's end these systems by educating people. Marx was, on the other hand, saying, let's end the system by making the system strong and then giving everybody what they need to survive. And then the system will just dissolve on its own. Because if everybody is equal and has, like, shared stuff, then everything will just be, you know, super nice. So, you know, there was a lot of thoughts going around in like the late 1800s, early 1900s with communism and Marxism that led up to Nazi Germany and Soviet Russia and all that mass murder. But what made it dangerous is when you put it in the hands of the state, when any ideology in the hands of the state. And what is the state? It's just a bunch of individuals like you and I who simply claim to have authority over other individuals. And that authority relies on the masses who believe in that authority. So if you read the book, The Most Dangerous Superstition by Larkin Rose, it's probably the best book you can read on the subject. It's really good. It's going to go down in history, I would say, as one of the best philosophy books detailing this belief system. And if you ask anybody who's read it, they'll be like, wow, this thing is like powerful. And that's why he made that movie, The Jones Plantation, to kind of like share the book through another perspective. And he's going to make more movies. The guy is incredible. His animations are very eye-opening, and it's very basic. I guarantee you any conservative who cares about freedom, who's not stuck in their cult of worshiping Trump right now, will be open to that information. Because I was conservative, but more than that, I was a truth seeker. If I wasn't a truth seeker, I wouldn't have gotten out of that belief system. I called myself a populist, constitutionalist, all those terms that people are now using today. And it's unfortunate because people are stuck in that and they cannot conceive of a possibility of anything else. It's left or right. And if it's not left and right, it's libertarian. To me, that's even worse. Because again, it's another flavor of playing the same game. And those people believe just as much as the left and right. Oh, if we get our people in, the system will get better. It's the same deal. So yeah, I'm
Right.
against the whole, like, if you mean capital in the sense of people taking over everything, like Bill Gates. But the problem is, like, Amazon and Bill Gates, they're working with the governments to make what they want done. And if it wasn't for the violence that they use and the tax exemptions that they have and all that stuff, handouts, government handouts, they wouldn't be as big as they are, taking over mom and pop stores and like your family experience. It's unfortunate. Most of America, right, was like family farms, apparently, family businesses. It's unfortunate to see that went away. But that's because the free market has been messed with. It's not free. People think we live in a capitalist, like, free world. We don't. We don't live in a capitalist world in a free sense. We live in a capitalist world in a slave sense, which is not, real money in the sense of like, oh, here's an apple, here's an orange. It's like, no, the government has to come and say, you can't give an apple to this person unless you have this, receipt or this permit. It's like, come on. It's like, you can't drink raw milk. You can't grow a certain plant because it's illegal in certain states. And it's like, really? We're going to make nature illegal? That just shows right there the pinnacle of what they're going to do, of what they are.
Right. Wow. Thought I was sharing.
There you go.
Screen.
You guys shared that book. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
definitely, I recommend that one for sure. And people, again, don't have to agree with me. That's the amazing part about voluntarism. You don't have to agree with me about anything. You believe what you want, just don't impose it on me using violence. You're never going to get everybody to agree on the same thing, ever. It's just how health works, it's how law works, it's how everything works. Even gardening, these people who are like, this is the best way to grow something. No, this is the best way. That's how people are, but that's what makes it beautiful. If we didn't have differences and uniqueness, we wouldn't be human. We wouldn't be ourselves.
Absolutely. So, where are you going forward now?
Well, I have to work on these projects like all day and all night, like reading and writing thousands of words. And so right now I'm kind of living like a academic, so it's a little I'll have to go back to my Zen Tao eventually because I'm just doing intensive like research on work that I would hope scholars or psychologists would do, but unfortunately I have to do. But it's not like it's an inspiring thing. It's very empowering, but it's very tiresome. I do work all day, all night sometimes. And so like I messaged you last night at like 4 a.m. So that's my living stance at the moment. And I'm fortunate to be able to do so, being the fact I live with my parents, don't have many expenses of my own, so I can focus on this work. And then eventually, as I get land and I can do more with other people, I want that to prepare my future and help other people's future as well. And that would, I think, be a whole family project. My whole family would probably do that together. But yeah.
Are you writing a book currently?
Yes. Yeah, no spoilers.
No spoilers. Okay. You would probably like talking to my daughter. She's she's something else. Even if she wasn't my daughter, she's a remarkable young woman. She's already got her master's in
You set me up.
anthropology.
Don't set
She's
me
already
up
got her
here.
master's in her anthropological pharmacology. She's getting her PhD in psychology at SMU. Currently works part-time for Tommy Chong and Cheech Marin, selling their franchises across the United States. Very into alternative medications far as treatment for different ailments. So she's on the forefront of that. She's going to be somebody. Even if she wasn't my daughter. So I'm very proud of her. Um, Extremely intelligent, very, very, very smart. One of those college students that didn't go on spring break. They went to the library and checked out a bunch of books for spring break. And when she told me that, I was like, "What? Are you sure you're my daughter?" Because me, you know, I'm down at South Padre Island partying up with Tommy Morrison when he won the World Heavyweight Championship, and he just came out in Rocky. And oh yeah, boy, that's a whole nother story. So that's what I did on my spring break vacations, even though I wasn't in school. But yeah, that's how my daughter rolls. She's a superstar,
Awesome.
and I'd love to get her on the show to come talk about things.
Yeah.
So I don't know how you two would gel, just because she is such on a high intellectual level.
I would let her take the floor. Just be like,
Yeah, she gets hard to talk to on some topics. She's like yourself, very, 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 very knowledgeable for her age on different topics. She knows all about geology, because they
cool.
sell rocks and stuff like that. She does tarot readings. I
Wow.
mean, yeah, she's remarkable young woman.
That's
Very, very
cool.
proud of her.
Hey, listen, I'm
Yeah.
always willing to connect with anybody, no matter who it is. And I think I can get along with whoever. And if anything I ever say triggers somebody, I'd always be like, well, what's up? What I do? Because
Right.
like I have good intentions, and I might say something that triggers somebody, but it's not my intent, right, to do that.
Yeah.
I come in here because I truly believe what I'm saying, and I don't want anybody to think wrongly of anything I'm saying. I don't want them to think that I'm just rebelling against the system because I want to, because again, like that's the anarchist stigma. It's like you want chaos, but that's not, of course, what I'm sharing. I'm sharing a lot of psychological, moral work, which is not easy to understand. So if it'd be much easier to share that position. It'd be much easier to be political. But
Right, yeah.
it's much harder to be a truth seeker and to try to get down to the fundamentals. And so, yeah, I respect anybody who believes what they believe, and if she like is hard headed on anything, that's awesome. I would applaud her. I'd be like, that's great, and I would because that's how you work with somebody like that. It's like you find out what they like, what they're interested in, and what they think they know about. And people think they know. That's often the issue in this world, is like they think they know. I don't want to claim that I know really anything. I say that as the first quote in my philosophy book, is to know you know nothing. But frankly, we do have to have some guiding principles in our life. And I guarantee you, she probably agrees violence is wrong. So if she agrees with that, then we're already on the same wavelength when it comes to what I'm saying. It's more so just then following through with that. I'd have to pick up contradictions or whatever in people's heads, which is everyone.
Right.
Everyone's got some sort of thing to work on in themselves. Nobody's perfect, right?
Right, absolutely. Nobody's perfect, as we strive to be, but we can't quite meet the task.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else you want to cover before we go?
No, that's it. I would say stay tuned. Anybody who's out there, theliberator.us is my website. You see it on the screen. That one is the main one that I run. It's like a news website. People are welcome to get involved. I have a showcase event where you send me a 1 minute clip, and you'll be featured. I'll do a whole show out of it. And
Oh, wow.
yeah, that's like one way to collaborate. I have another way. Is if you write articles, if you're a writer, you can contribute, and I'll make it into a video for you potentially. Because I want to share your word. I can help you with content creation. Anybody out there who's trying to get into content creation, if you need help, feel free to email me, message me, feel free, because I'm just trying to help out other people so they can do, again, this work. I don't want to be the only one doing this. We want everybody to share what they believe to be the truth and freedom.
That's why you're here.
Yeah.
That's why you're here today. Yep. So, wow. When would you like to come back on?
I don't know. What does Buffy have to say?
Well, I already know what she's.
I want to do content creation with you. You've blown my mind. I think you've blown everybody's mind. We need to continue networking and keep talking and educating people, because there's so much truth in everything you say, and it's felt deeply because that's part of your truth and who you are, and you're so passionate about it. And crying earlier was very inspirational, because to see to see truth in such a young, strong voice is phenomenal to me. It gives me hope. I'm 48 years old, and I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
and I worry because my daughter's, oh, I didn't mean to make you
No,
cry.
no, no.
I'm thinking this dude
I have a bright
he's
light in
got
front of
it.
me too, but
He's
that doesn't
got it
help.
right. Keep doing it. You have my full support. Anything I can do to help you, network, content creation. I've got a lot of other people that are really great. I'd love to introduce you to.
Awesome.
And this is amazing. Thank you,
Yeah.
Floyd, for
Oh,
having him.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you
you.
for letting me talk to him, Floyd. Floyd's the bomb. Floyd's like, hey, Floyd is just amazing,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
he's given me a chance where people wouldn't give me a chance. He's listened to me, he's helped me, and he's supported me too. So I mean, Floyd's just a great man, and I dare anybody to put a comment that he's not, because I'll tell you right now he is. All right,
Yeah.
I'll be backstage, y'all.
all right. Thank you, Buffy.
He's cool.
Yeah, I know that's tough. You know, it's it's hard standing up on that pedestal when people put us up there, because that's not what Cory and myself.
No.
That's not what we're looking for. You know,
No.
I've been the limelight, and you know, it's something I embraced at the time, and it's something that I'm really not fond of returning to.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I
I
know.
kind of like my anonymity.
I'm crying just because I have a bright light in front of me. It's raining, and I'm a bit tired, so don't put
I'm
that
not
on me.
worshiping you all. I'm just saying that, take this energy and use it to fuel the purpose,
Yeah,
right?
of course.
And I mean, I know you're human. We're all human.
Hmm.
And I mean, Floyd's not always said something I wanted to hear to my face, but I heard it. So, I mean, and I don't put him, I'm not, but I will give props and I will give empowerment. I'm a good cheerleader.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, well, if you guys ever have anything to critique of me, you're always welcome. And I could always take criticism from you too, Floyd. I like I said, I like the fact that you're critiquing these communities, and I've wanted to see that. So I want to say thank you to you and publicly to everybody, that you're kind of critical of Anna von Reitz and these other figures, because I felt like that needed to happen for a while. I did a video, like an hour long video 2 years ago, on how she's wrong on the subject of natural law. She just like generalizes so much on that subject. I was just like amazed, because there's a lot of writers in history talking about that subject, and she just thinks it's like this survival of the fittest, like law of the jungle type of thing. I'm like, what about the fact that it's in our Declaration of Independence? It says laws of nature. And what about the fact, like, our founding fathers did not refer to that as the survival of the fittest? So I found that really strange. And then she talked about deism as well. Deism was an Enlightenment philosophy in the 1700s. And she calls that, like, she equates deism with Freemasonry and Satanism. I guess because she's a Catholic, right? Or she's like a Christian. And some of the deist texts were like against Christianity, but they were, again, founding fathers like Thomas Paine and Thomas Jefferson, Elihu Palmer, who was a friend of Jefferson. Like, a lot of the deists were very pro-freedom, and yeah, they were challenging the churches. They were saying basically that you don't need the churches or middlemen between you and God. And so it was a very controversial position. It ended up some of them in jail because of it. So I'm surprised that she would view that as something negative. And I was just critical because she didn't have any sources. Like, when you look at her material, it's like, where's the source? And it's why I appreciate so many other people's work, is some people actually provide the sources. I have somebody in my community who would love your work, by the way. And I'll have to share his channel with you when I have the chance. But like, he provides every source that you can find. And he's really good at making his videos. It's really like good, I would say, for my generation. Like really high energy, like all this stuff. He's using video games contracts, like the contracts you sign in video games, as proof to share like what you're signing up for. Really cool stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, so I will share that with you too.
Yeah, definitely. That sounds pretty interesting. Something I've never heard of for sure.
Yeah, he's on his A game though. Everything has a source, and it's like if you're gonna get into the law world, you know, like when I first came across like Anna's work, it's like I don't understand what she's saying because she didn't have any sources. It's like, oh, this. You kind of just take her word on everything she says, and people do. It's like people watch it and they take her word on it. It's like, where's your source? Now, for me, it's like I'm talking about philosophy, psychology. I just want you to understand me. Like normally, I don't have to provide a source for that type of stuff necessarily. I could provide evidence, as in like historical examples and the nature of the mind.
Right.
Or maybe certain studies that were done, but for hers, it's like she has to cite certain legal codes, and if she's not doing that, it's like
Yeah.
it gets really confusing. Because if you throw
That's
one thing in there that's not true, that could be dangerous.
It's pervasive across that whole category.
Yeah.
You know, where they cite stuff and they don't give you the correct citing, the full citing, or they've taken it out of context to apply to their narrative or whatever they're thinking. You know, they did that in prison when these guys would come, you know, hey, Floyd, can you look at my case? And,
Yeah.
you know, of course they want to, you know, hear all the good things. And, you know, of course you got to break their heart. And, you know, but if you want somebody to blow smoke up your ass, that guy will take all your money and tell you everything you want to hear. I promise you. You're going to get out next week.
It's crazy because once they start asking for money, it's like, whoa, you know, like it's one thing to be sharing ideas, but then another to be like, okay, now give me money, and then I'll give you money back. Like let's create a banking system. Like it's like that right there is the foundation to cults. It's like if you give to me, I'll give to you, and you know. It's whoa, and then if you don't like that, then you're part of the enemy. Because I saw that article she did on you, I was just like, whoa, you know, attacking you. What's up with that? Crazy. So, but
actually, you saw that Monday night webinar, huh?
Yeah, I saw some of that. Well, I saw her article too that she wrote on you, but
I missed those.
Yeah. Well, hey, I'm getting attacked every day by the vegans in this community that I'm in, like the Mark Passio community. A lot of them, since they're very staunch, like natural law, morality, talking about human rights, they apply some of it to animals. So some of them are like staunch vegans. And so when I'm not promoting veganism, they get super mad. But like, I agree with their sentiments. Like I care about animals, so it's like, what are they trying to attack me for, right? So that's what I have to deal with.
Without weapons, we would be the food. We would not be the apex predator on the planet.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Diet's a complicated topic, but I'm against every diet. You know me. I'm integrative nutrition. I want to look at what works for each individual. I've talked to way too many practitioners to think, this is the best way and no other way is the best, because that's what these people have the mentality with. And frankly, because they have that mentality, it tells me they never really worked with any people, like real people. They never actually got out there and had any clients or patients or spoke with practitioners, because if they did, they would not hold those opinions. They get so stuck because there's influencers, just like those cult leaders, and they're the ones promoting the diets, the influencers online, because it's trendy and it makes money. But all the practitioners who actually have patients and clients, they're not promoting one thing because they have to learn from the individual. It would be silly for them to do that.
Yeah. Well, they're not going to get the effect that they're looking for sure. Absolutely. Wow. I'm ready to go. You got me excited for sure. And jealous.
Yeah, let's do it. And if you come across more people my age, bring them my way. Let's inspire the generation. Let's do it. I really do plan on inspiring them, and let's empower them. Let's give them the tools so that way depression, anxiety, all those things become of the past, right? And they believe in themselves and they see their own self-value. That right there will be the key, the gateway to everything else. Because when they see that they are not worthless and that somebody has done it before, like they take away all those superstitions and identities. I have to be this somebody. I have to look good on Instagram, or this person looks better than me. When they take away all that's in their minds, because I know it is in this generation, they will become infinitely more free, and they'll start thinking more for themselves. And everything will start opening up. I mean, that's the way I look at it. You can tell me if I'm wrong, but that's what I've kind of deduced it down to.
Right. Are you familiar with Lewis Herbs?
No, I'm not.
All right. This is his tour that he has going on across the country right now. Screwbigdove.com. So go check this out. On the 6th, right here, they'll be in Plano, Texas. This is my friend's gallery that they'll be at. So obviously they're talking to him. He's going to be in Jacksonville next Tuesday. So I don't know if you have the ability to attend that event, but I can get you hooked in to where you can attend that event, possibly meet him, introduce yourself, and possibly get a speaking slot.
Wow. Well, thank you for that. That's super cool of you. Thank you for that. I really do. I don't know. I'd have to check, and that seems kind of soon, but I definitely want to connect with those people either way. Like, I like to connect with everybody.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah, you're going to go meet a bunch of like-minded people, and I'm sure they would be tickled pink to hear somebody of your age with your wisdom, your knowledge, your research, and your mission statement. I think you have a lot to say, a lot to offer. When you talk to your parents, you tell them I said thank you.
Okay.
I said thank you too.
Cool. My friend St. John is in the chat. He goes by, this is his name, St. John Panul Chidester III. It's like the hardest name in the world. John, can't you have a nickname one day? Like, goodness, man. He goes by St. John. I guess that's his nickname mainly. But he's a good friend of mine. I think he's in Pennsylvania still. Are you still in Pennsylvania, John? He used to do some events down here in Florida with me. I miss him. But yeah.
Okay.
I have a lot of cool people in my community too. He's still in Pennsylvania. Cool. Chilling with Mark Passio. Is that what you're doing?
So I see you have some fans as well.
Well, just a lot of cool people I've met along the way. Frankly, I like the fact I'm not too big of a creator. I like the fact that I know the people that are. I mean, all the censorship, it kind of stinks because we would probably be way bigger than we are as content creators. Like I've done so much work on documentaries and so forth, but the more work I do, I realize it's not that worth it. So, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I still do what needs to be produced, and frankly, that's the main thing. As long as I'm doing what has to be done, that's it. And also, I have to make it a fun, enjoyable process along the way, and I plan to do that with the colleges, make it fun. I'll be back soon. I miss you too, bro. Yes, chilling with Mark. Cool. Thank you, John. You should meet Fearless Floyd sometime. Yeah, he's a content creator too, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, man, I'm going to have you back for sure. I don't know if I can get you on next week. If you would love to just do a show on one of your books, or we can do a series on your books, or we can just do one show on permaculture, break that down, show everybody what it's like, give us a little tour of your own permaculture forest in your backyard.
Not a bad idea.
Yeah. I mean, we've got to educate as many people as we can, as much as we can. Hopefully this video will get shared. The entry hour, of course, hopefully we'll get a lot of traction for you and introduce you to a completely new audience.
I appreciate that. And yeah, I think after the release of these next projects, I absolutely would take you up on that. I would want to share those projects with your audience. I think they'd be very powerful, so we can just start sharing it around everywhere, trying to get it out there as much as possible, because they're going to be very monumental, very big.
Okay. Oh, awesome. Yeah. And I do have other platforms out there that have, above 60,000 subscribers
Awesome.
that, we may be able to get some traction on as well. So,
Cool.
yeah, I look forward to doing a lot with you. Um, Definitely your bright future. You're going to be a superstar, sir. So look forward to that. Stay humble.
Yeah. Well, it's hard when you tell me things like that, but yeah. Just kidding. I
Uh,
I won't let people get to me, and actually, if I do get to any point of influence, that's probably when I would step down and be like, all right, passing the torch, your turn. Because again, we got to inspire other people to do it. So anyone out there,
yeah.
you're welcome to get involved, and I appreciate your humbleness and welcoming me like that. I think that's awesome, super cool.
Yeah. Oh, you're welcome. I trust me. I have an eye for talent. I actually, most people don't know this, quiet as it's kept, but one of my ex girlfriends, I met her when she just turned 16 years old, had
Mm,
my eye on her, and she had the opportunity to be the next guest girl in between Claudia Schiffer and Anna Nicole Smith. And of course, everybody knows where Anna Nicole's from, right? Houston, Texas. Where? Right down the street, Gigi's Cabaret. And then she went to Rick's Cabaret. And that's where she found her former husband, her late husband. And so, yeah, she had that opportunity. So I can see talent when I see it. And Cory, you're going places. So keep up the good work. Keep writing your books. Keep networking with folks. We're going to network you with more folks, and we're going to get you moving on.
let's do it.
There's some things I don't know if I mentioned it to you that are progressing in the background that I may be able to get you a nationwide audience.
Okay. Wow, that's amazing. Well,
Yeah,
very grateful to know people like you and whatever we can do to share the message of freedom and create it on earth. I'll do whatever it takes to make it happen. So let's do it.
and I will send a copy of this video to the person that will put it in somebody else's hands that will be able to make that decision. So, yeah,
Beautiful.
I look forward to this. Man, thank you for being here, Cory. I'm just so humbled, honored, and grateful that you showed up
Yeah.
and you are who you are with your platform and you have a genuine heart and soul. And I hope everybody can see that. And y'all go follow Cory. Main website is theliberator.us. And Cory, with all my guests, do you have anything you'd like to close with? And I'll give you the floor.
Well, thank you, Fearless Floyd. Definitely one of the better interviews I've ever done. I will tell you that just because of how open and welcoming you are. So you definitely are awesome for that. So up and away, Daryl. Thank you, Daryl. You got an international audience already, dude. It's what Katie said. You guys are super kind, but I feel like, we are just getting started here. And we do have work to do, but it will be a natural progression. If we open up the right doors, I think things will just start unfolding on their own. And I encourage everybody to open up those doors. Get involved in your local community no matter where you are. Because I guarantee you, if you don't think that there's any truthers around you, which I hear often, there definitely is. And I'll talk to somebody the next day and they'll live in the same exact town as the person I spoke to the other day. And I'll be like, you guys don't know who each other are. You guys are both saying that there's nobody around you, but yet you both care about the same things. If you believe something, you are not the only person. You are definitely not alone, no matter what you've suffered in this life, whether it's a trauma or a certain mindset. And you should not push yourself down, ever. Remember that, because it's very easy to do that, especially in this world that's going to try to push you down, whether you are a truther one way or another. If you care about other people, especially, you're going to find yourself in that position, which I find quite interesting. The fact that people who care the most are those who have to get vilified by society. And we don't need that to happen anymore. If you build a community of people who care about you, you'll find out that you'll have a lot more inspiration for what's going on, and you'll be way more optimistic about the future. So instead of being all doomsday and everything's going to end, you can believe in yourself because you'll have other people who also believe in you. And that's super important to have. If you want to create any change, create community and create like minds and get your neighborhood involved, get them cuttings, start growing food. If you're in an apartment, make a, whatever they call it, a green closet, just start throwing plants in the closet and start making that a whole garden. You can do anything if you set your mind to it. You live in the age of mass information. And I encourage everybody, check out, voluntarism, statism, permaculture, those ideas I mentioned. They will come of great use for freedom. I can guarantee you that. And in case you don't think that's the case, stay tuned because my future works will prove that to you, perhaps, through many different ways. And maybe you're not convinced of any of the things I'm saying, regarding government and anarchy. I would expect it to be quite controversial if you're new to those ideas. I certainly was pretty resistant to them at first. Well, I encourage you to have an open mind if you care about freedom to look into those ideas because they are very much different from the way the media and the news portrays them to be. Perhaps they do that on purpose. They do that with other things. Would you be surprised if they did it with this? So ask yourself that question. Ask yourself, do I own myself? What is self-ownership, right? And how far am I willing to go with that self-ownership? Do I recognize that in order to have freedom, in order to have self-ownership, I need to recognize that other people also have self-ownership, that they also should be free? Because if I want freedom for myself, like the golden rule, I have to apply it reciprocally. If I say I have the natural right to something, then someone else also has that right. So you're not the only one that has the right over your own life, liberty, and property, not just pursuit of happiness. Other people have that right too. So let's create that. Let's help them see that in themselves. Because people will push themselves down, especially in times of great grief. We need to be the ones to light up this world, to give people faith, love, and courage. And courage is acting on that love. So let's get together. Let's replace lawns with food forest. Let's educate people and show them that voting and political actions and paperwork is not the solution, but changing hearts and minds and getting together, setting up local projects, rebooting the economy, rebooting our health, doing what we need to do directly rather than begging, asking for permission, asking for money, waiting for the banks to arrive, these Anna von Reich's banks. No, we don't need that, right? We do need money, but we can do that together through the projects that we create and through our efforts. And at a certain point when the collapse happens in society, which is a lot of people are expecting, that's not going to matter as much as keeping your own mind in check and keeping those you love around you and making sure that they care about you and the rest of the neighborhood. Because when people are off their depression medications, they're off their anxiety medications, and they don't have access to that anymore, or they don't have access to Netflix and social media, do you think the world might go a little crazy? Might just do that. So you want to be a little careful, but by careful I mean also carefree. I want you to live life, have fun in those times. That might be a great time to get together with people, have some parties, have some fun, and express your freedom. And don't get trapped in the news, and don't get trapped in the solutions the government is just going to be handing to you on a golden platter saying, here you go. So without further ado, I'll leave you guys on that note to take action. And go to theliberator.us. I have an action page and a learn page. Start there, and you'll get everything you need to know. Nonviolent resistance strategies, permaculture, voluntarism, those are the top 3 solutions I got for you. The main problem, statism, which is also known as slavery. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Thank you, Cory, for being here. Wow, what a closing. I think that's the best closing that I've ever had on the show.